Hey, up, pop it. You all right?
Hello. Welcome to Game Week 10 of the 1992-93 Premier League season. And we continue to bring you all of the highlights as we relive the league.
On this week's episode, we are bringing the highlights from Blackburn versus Oldham, Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest, Coventry versus Norwich, Crystal Palace v Southampton, Ipswich v Sheffield United. Look out for Craig Forrest in that one. Leeds United v Everton. Cantona pulling the strings again. Man United versus QPR. That should be a high-scoring, free-scoring game. Middlesbrough versus Aston Villa. Spencer Taylor, our very, very special guest commentator this week, brings you the action from Anfield with Liverpool versus Wimbledon.
Sexy Spen.
Sexy Spen. And the game at Hillsborough between Sheffield Wednesday and Tottenham Hotspur. Rounding us off this week with a Monday night special of Arsenal v Man City. All very exciting.
And I can hardly contain myself. So anyway, let's press that rewind button and let's go relive the league. And to begin game week 10, we have got Chelsea hosting the club at the bottom of the table, Nottingham Forest, who are yet to gain a single point on their travels this season and have conceded 14 goals in trying. They will feel up against it today as Chelsea have won their last two games, which were away from home, but will want to put on a show in front of their fans today. This game comes too soon for the new 21-year-old winger, David Hopkin, who signed for Chelsea yesterday from Scottish side Morton, a player Ian Porterfield sees for the future.
Chelsea line up with Kevin Hitchcock in goal. Dave Besant's officially had his last chance now. Ian Porterfield said he'll never play for the club again after his constant mistakes this season. At the back are Frank Sinclair, David Lee and Mal Donaghy. In midfield, Gareth Hall, Eddie Newton, Nigel Spatman, Andy Townsend and Dennis Wise, with Robert Fleck and Mick Harford up front. On the bench, Alec Chamberlain, Graham Stewart and John Spencer. And for Forest, Mark Crossley in goal, Carl Tyler, Stuart Pearce and Brian Laws at the back. A midfield of Gary Crosby, Ray McKinnon, Roy Keane, Toddy Orlickson and Scott Gemmell, with Nigel Clough behind Gary Bannister up front. On the bench are Andy Marriott, Kingsley Black and Ian Warne. Not the best game of football today under the glaring sun at Stamford Bridge. The first chance came in the second half and David Lee's free kick struck the post, would have been a worthy match winner in any game. Forest's chances were few and far between, and the main one came in the second half after a corner came in and some wonderful head tennis, and the ball found itself in the box with Gary Bannister with just Hitchcock to beat, a tame chip and a good save for Hitchcock, staking his claim for that #1 jersey. There was another chance for Chelsea late on after substitute Graham Stewart found some space out on the wing, whipped a ball in, and Mick Harford headed on goal, but it was a tame effort which Mark Crossley made look a little better than it was.
And it has to be looked at as a good point for Forest, really. Also keeping an all-important clean sheet. They are lacking on the goals front, however. Just 8 goals scored in 9 games. Not replacing Teddy Sheringham early in the season might be proving costly. However, Forest remain at the foot of the table, 0-0. Next up, we've got the Lancashire Derby, with Oldham making a short trip to Blackburn. Since gaining promotion to the Premier League, Rovers have only lost 1 game, which was a 3-2 defeat by Everton. Oldham are joint top when it comes to goals scored, bagging 18 goals in their opening 9 games. Let's see how this one goes.
Blackburn line up with Bobby Mims in goal. A back four of Colin Hendry, Kevin Moran, Alan Wright and David Nett. In midfield, Gordon Cowans comes in for the injured Tony Dobson. Battering Tim Sherwood and Mark Atkins, with Stuart Ripley, Mike Newell and Super Alan Shearer up front. On the bench are Matt Dickens, Nicky Marker and Roy Wegley. For Oldham, John Allworth in goal, Steve Redmond, Richard Jobson, Neil Poynton and Gunnar Haller at the back. Neil Adams coming in for Nick Henry, Paul Bernard, Mike Milligan in midfield with Ian Marshall, Ian Olney and Graham Sharp up front. On the bench, John Keeley, Craig Fleming and Willie Donachie. Whenever Oldham are involved, you expect goals. And today there was, but unfortunately for them, for Blackburn. Early on, Stuart Ripley reacted quick with a free kick and played in Shearer through Neil Poynton and Ian Marshall to smash home to make it 1-0. You've got to commend the composure shown by Shearer here. He was put under some severe pressure by men with sublime mullets and then smashed home a glorious finish. Look at them for a set of do's. In the second half, with some great play from Mark Atkins down the wing, he cut back inside and floated a crossing with his left peg, and there was the man usually providing the assist, Stuart Ripley, to head home to make it 2-0 to Blackburn. Then, late on, Oldham got a chance to get back into it. Somehow, Colin Hendry conceded a penalty. Looked at this a few times, don't know how. Ian Marshall with a 300-yard run up, his hair bouncing in the wind, smashed it straight at Bobby Mims and crushed a few ribs potentially. He held it somehow, and they held the lead. 2-0 to Blackburn.
Well, that £3.3 million spent on Alan Shearer looks a bargain now, doesn't it? 10 Premier League goals already in as many games. Well, superstar in the making, if you ask me. A rare game off for the Oldham strikers today. Failing to score for only the 2nd time this season. Blackburn keeping the pressure on Norwich and remain in 2nd place. Next up we go to Highfield Road. We've got top against 3rd. What a game we've got in store here. What's happened here? The fans haven't turned up. We've only got 16,436 fans in this stadium. That's almost 9,000 below the capacity. But this is 1st against 3rd. I just don't understand it. If this is the best the Premier League have to offer, I'm done with this. Over to you, Mike.
There's nearly as many players as there is fans. And we start them with Steve Grizovic in goal, Andy Pearce, Kenny Sansom, Peter Atherton and Brian Borrows at the back. In midfield, Lee Hurst and Lloyd McGrath with Robert Rosario, Kevin Gallagher, John Williams and Peter and Love up front. On their bench, Jonathan Gould, Phil Babb and Terry Fleming. For Norwich, it's Brian Gunn in goal, Rob Newman, John Paulston coming in for Ian Butterworth, Mark Bowen, Ian Culverhouse and Darryl Such, who's in for Gary Mexton, with Jeremy Goss, Ian Crook and David Phillips in midfield, and Mark Robbins and Chris Sutton up front. On the bench are Mark Walton, Colin Woodthorpe and Darren Beckford. in footage we can't find and left to the memory of the people in attendance, Norwich took the lead in the 13th minute through Ian Crook. After 37 minutes and although 1-0 down, Coventry decided to play some unreal possession football. Kenny Sansom got it and played it forward, Gallagher let it roll on and from nowhere, Love sprinted onto it through two defenders, showed Brian Gunn the shoulder and tapped home to equalise for Coventry. 1-1.
Well, it was the highest attendance of the season so far for Coventry, but both had to settle for a point, both cancelled each other out. Bit of a dire game really, couple of decent goals, but 1-1. Next up, we've got Southampton travelling to Sellers Park to take on Crystal Palace. I'm not expecting anything good here. We've got two teams in the bottom 5. Both teams have only won once all season out of the 9 games that they've played. Let's see what it brings.
Palace line up with Nigel Martin in goal. A back 5 of John Humphrey, Eric Young, Chris Coleman, Lee Sinnott and Gareth Southgate. In midfield are Simon Osborne and Eddie McGoldrick, with John Solarco, Paul Williams and Chris Armstrong up front. On the bench are Paul Held, Darren Patterson and Stanley Collibor. For Southampton, Tim Flowers in goal, Kevin Moore, Ken Moncow in for Richard Hall, Mickey Adams in for Nicky Banger, Francis Benali and Jason Dodd at the back. In midfield, Tommy Widrington in for Terry Hurlock and Matt Letitia, with Perry Groves, David Speedy and Ian Dowie coming in for Kerry Dixon up front. On the bench are Ian Andrews, Neil Madison and Nicky Banger. Palace got their first win of the season last Saturday and it looked like it was going to start off in a similar vein. Simon Osborne whacked one from 25 yards and then was brought down in the box after the rebound by Francis Benali. Penalty to Palace. John Solarco lined up the penalty to make it 1-0. Hits the post, rebounds out and cleared. You could argue Palace were quite wasteful with their chances, or you could argue that Southampton were brilliant in defence. Mickey Adams clearing off the line here from Chris Coleman. And completely against the run of play, Southampton took the lead with a beautiful goal from the not-so-beautiful Ian Dowie and an equally not-so-beautiful celebration. Palace got themselves back into the game after a wonderful scramble in the box and Eric Young stabbed home to equalise. But then, 2 minutes from time, Gareth Southgate headed one right up in the air. Nigel Martin didn't want to catch it. He tried punching it under pressure from Perry Groves. And then Ian Dowie put it through a defender's legs to make it 2-1 to Southampton.
Well, what can I say? We did a piece on John Solarco last week. Highlighted how good he was. We tagged him in a post on Twitter. Not a single bit of acknowledgement. So, Ian Dowie taught Solarco a lesson this week, having 2 chances, bagging them both. Solarco, you had 4 sitters and you missed them all. No highlighting for you this week, John, mate. 2-1 Southampton. Up the Saints. Next up, we've got Sheffield United travelling to Portman Road to take on Ipswich Town. The Blades, they haven't won away from home yet this season. And Ipswich, they haven't lost at home yet this season. Surely this is going to be an easy win for Ipswich, is it? Let's see.
In goal for Ipswich is Craig Forrest, Neil Thompson, Phil Whelan, David Linnigan and Eddie Youds at the back with Mick Stockwell, Geraint Williams in for Glenn Pennyfather, Jason Dazelle, Gavin Johnson and John Walk in midfield, with Chris Kawamura up front on his own. On the bench, Clive Baker, Glenn Pennyfather and Paul Goddard. For Sheffield United, Alan Kelly in goal, a back 4 of Brian Gale, Paul Beasley, Tom Cowan and Carl Bradshaw. In midfield, Kevin Gage, John Gannon, Adrian Littlejohn, Paul Rogers and Dane Whitehouse, with Brian Dean up front. On the bench for Sheffield United, only 2 today with Charlie Hatfield and Alan Cork. In the second minute today, Ipswich's keeper Craig Forrest decided to do a karate kick on Adrian Littlejohn, resulting in a red card. Littlejohn was absolutely flattened, and Craig Forrest had the longest walk-off possible. He seems to have run a mile there. On comes 33-year-old standing keeper who was Barnes' #1 in the 80s, Clive Baker. Played for Coventry last year, didn't get a game, and was expected as much this season. First thing he did was commit assault on Paul Rodgers in the box, leaving Sheffield United with a chance, which, just like every other chance in the game, they spurned. Bassett was fuming after the match, said they deserved to get beat, never mind the draw. Baker pulled off one save from Alan Cork near the end. Other than that, nothing else to report, 0-0.
Overall, it was a scrappy game. 6 bookings in total, as well as a red card after just 2 minutes. Ipswich did well, though, to hold off Sheffield United for 88 minutes. But the draw specialists do what draw specialists do well, and Ipswich drew the game. That's 7 draws in total out of just 10 games so far this season. 0-0. And next up, we've got Everton travelling to Ellen Road to take on Leeds United. Everton, they're attempting to bounce back after 2 defeats. Let's see how they get on today.
Leeds line up with John Lukic in goal, Chris Fairclough, Chris White, Tony DeRigo and David Batty at the back. In midfield are Gary McAllister, Gordon Strachan, Scott Sellers and Gary Speed, with Eric Cantona and Lee Chapman up front. On the bench are Mervyn Day, John Newsom and Carl Shutt. And for Everton, Neville Southall in goal, Alan Harper, Gary Ablett, Dave Watson, Andy Hinchcliffe and David Unsworth at the back. Midfield, John Ebrell and Barry Horn, with Robert Varzica and Preki out wide, with Tony Cottee on his own up front. On the bench are Jason Caton, Peter Beagrie and Mo Johnston. It will lead to looking more likely to break the deadlock today. And after some great play by Gary Speed in the first half, he found McAllister 30 yards out and he thwacked one against the crossbar. It was McAllister who was looking most dangerous, and Cantona found him with a through ball in the second half, and Gary Ablett took his legs out. Penalty to Leeds. McAllister coolly slots it away, as always. 1-0 to the champions. Then 2 minutes later, Ablett was caught in possession. It was naughty on Speed. Strachan found McAllister. McAllister crossed in, and Lee Chapman scored from Lee Chapman range. 2-0.
And the champions of England end that run of 5 games without a win. Leeds also remain unbeaten at home so far this season. Cantona didn't score today, but the Frenchman was the architect of Leeds' success with his crisp passing and anticipation. 2-0 to Leeds. And next up at Old Trafford, we've got Man United hosting Queen's Park Rangers. Last season, QPR turned up and absolutely destroyed the Red Devils, beating them 4-1. They turn up in better position this year. They're in 5th, Man United in 4th. Well, let's see how this goes.
United line up with Peter Schmeichel in goal, Steve Bruce, Gary Pallister, Clayton Blackmore and Dennis Irwin at the back. In midfield, Paul Ince, Darren Ferguson, Andrea Kanchelskis and Ryan Giggs, with Brian McClare and Mark Hughes up front. On their bench are Gary Walsh, Lee Martin and Danny Wallace. And for QPR, Jan Steshkal in goal, Darren Peacock, Rufus Brever, who's coming in for Clive Wilson, Danny Maddox, who's coming in for Alan McDonald, and David Bardsley, who's coming in for Justin Channing in defence. Midfield of Andy Impey, Ray Wilkins, Ian Holloway, coming in for Simon Barker, and Andy Sinton, with Gary Penrice and Les Ferdinand up front. On the bench are Tony Roberts, Simon Barker, and Justin Channing. United's first chance today came after a long punt upfield by Schmeichel, found itself with Kanchelskis, went to Hughes, to McClare, back to Hughes, but not past Steshkal. United's second chance of the game didn't come until the second half. A cross came in, it was dealt with by Schmeichel, he launched it out, found Brian McClare, he thought he was Ryan Giggs, went on a long run down the right wing, and look at this, Kanchelskis coming out of nowhere, he found him with a through ball, looked up, saw Hughes in the middle, crossed it in, didn't quite find him, goal kick. Then QPR wangled themselves a chance. Cross came in, it was flicked on by Gary Penrice, it went to Impey, gave back to Penrice who smacked it towards goal, and Schmeichel saved it, made it look harder than it was. but that would have been 2 goals in 2 games for the Divine Moustache. We know what strikers are like when they get that eye for goal. Greedy as anything. If he'd have looked up, he'd have seen Simon Barker in the middle and laid him in with an open goal. Bad choice, Gary.
It wasn't quite the game that we all expected. QPR are going well this season. Only the 1 defeat in their opening 10 games. Man United still sit nicely in 4th. QPR just 1 place behind them. 0-0. And next up, we've got Middlesbrough hosting Aston Villa at Ayresome Park. Just 1 point separates these 2, so I'm expecting a tight affair today.
Middlesbrough line up with Ian Ironside in goal, who's coming in for Brian Horn, Alan Kernahan, Derek White, Jimmy Phillips and Chris Morris at the back. In midfield, Andy Peake comes back in for John Hendry, Jamie Pollock and Robbie Mustoe. And up front, Tommy Wright, Paul Wilkinson and Bernie Slaven, who replaces Willie Faulkner. On the bench are Andy Collett, Jonathan Gittins and Mark Proctor. For Aston Villa, Nigel Spink in goal, Sean Teal, Paul McGrath, Steve Staunton and Earl Barrett at the back. In midfield, Gary Parker, Kevin Richardson and Ray Houghton. Steve Froggatt, Dalian Atkinson and Dean Saunders up front. And the potential changes for Villa are Les Seeley, Mark Blake and Dwight York. After 22 minutes, Steve Staunton went on a breakaway on his own up the pitch. He looked up, saw Steve Froggatt, didn't play him in early enough, and then over at the pass, and somehow Froggatt got on the end of it, whipped the ball in, it went over Atkinson's head, landed at Dean Saunders' feet, and he slammed home to make it 1-0 to Villa. In the 62nd minute, Middlesbrough piled on the pressure. Tommy Wright overhit a cross and Steve Staunton was a little bit too casual on it around Robbie Mustoe. He got the ball, fired into the box, went through a defender like he was nothing, played it into the middle, Wilkinson shot, great save by Spink, and there was Bernie Slaven to smack home to make it 1-1. Villa were piling on the pressure to take the lead back, and after 71 minutes, they got themselves a free kick. Staunton tricked everyone by going short. 1 or 2 passes in the midfield and freed up Daly and Atkinson in the box, took the ball past Ironside and slotted home to take the lead. 2-1 Villa. And then just a few minutes later, Villa scored one of the goals of the season. Alan Kernahan headed it only as far as Dwight York. He gave it to Daly and Atkinson, gave it to Mr. Box Office, Gary Parker. He found the runner, Dwight York, who crossed the ball in, and there was Dean Saunders to slot home to make it 3-1 to the Villains. With 5 minutes to go, Villa tried to pile some pressure on to get back into the game. Phillips crossed the ball into Wilkinson, who couldn't get the ball on target. Somebody fell over in the box. Here's Peake, he shoots, saved by Spink. Off the shins of Paul McGrath and in. Uh-oh, what's the clapping for here? Oh, lines was flagging. For what? Not like they have any video. Oh, there's a replay, but they don't have any lines, do they? Where's all them lines? I'm checking for that went out, I think. But that did not go out. Goal given. And that's how it ended. 3-2. Aston Villa. What a game.
And Middlesbrough are handed their first home defeat of the season. Dean Saunders with another double for Villa today, and he was clearly unhappy at Liverpool because the move to second city has given him a new lease to life. The man is on fire. Great win for Villa today. 3-2.
And now to Anfield, and Spencer Taylor brings us the action.
We're at Anfield for Liverpool versus Wimbledon. Liverpool are in very poor form. They've lost 4 of their first 9 games this season, and this is the team they chose to try and put that right here today against the crazy gang of Wimbledon. It's Bruce Grobbelaar, Spaghetti Legs in goal. He's replacing David James. Torben Picnic, Mark Wright, David Burrows, Mike Marsh, Jamie Redknapp, Jan Mulby, Steve McManaman, Mark Walters, Ronnie Johnny Rosenthal and Don Hutchinson are the 11 on the pitch for the team from Anfield today. Steve McManaman replacing Steve Nicol, and on the bench it's David James, Nick Tanner and Itzvan Kozma, who's been added to the bench following an impressive substitute performance in the midweek cup game versus Chesterfield, an absolutely mental game where Liverpool came from 3-0 down to draw 4 apiece in that particular game. And as for the visitors, it's Hans Sagers, Scott Fitzgerald who comes in for Dean Blackwell, John Scales, Justin Skinner, Warren Barton, Vinnie Jones, Robbie Earle, Neil Ardley, Andy Clark, John Fashanu and Dean Holdsworth. And on the bench for them it's Neil Sullivan, Paul Miller and Laurie Sanchez. And just look at that lineup for Wimbledon. Some fantastic names from the past. Vinnie Jones, of course, Robbie Earle, Neil Ardley, John Fashanu and Dean Holdsworth. Some brilliant names I remember from my youth growing up, watching football, watching Match of the Day and all of that good stuff. And well, Liverpool come into this game after losses to Sheffield United and Aston Villa on the bounce, and Wimbledon have had a little bit of everything lately. They've won one, drawn one and lost one in the last 3, and Vinnie Jones is playing against Liverpool for the second time in 3 weeks, as he also played against them for his last game for Chelsea before returning to Wimbledon. Chelsea lost that game 2-1, so Vinnie Jones is going to be wanting some kind of revenge, isn't he? Surely he's going to be putting in a performance today. In what might be the best game of the weekend, Wimbledon took the lead early on. John Fashanu with a goal there, getting lucky after his first touch was a little bit dodgy, but his second touch was very good as he powered the ball past Bruce Grobbelaar to give Wimbledon an early lead against the team in the famous red and white kit of Liverpool. Vinnie Jones absolutely loving that there. It was indeed a very, very nice goal, and well, Wimbledon taking an early lead. Now Justin Skinner on his debut for Wimbledon, and well, what a place to make your debut at Anfield, and he's going to take this free kick just on the halfway line here. What can he do with this? He's taken a very, very long run up here. He's almost out of the stadium, he's gone so far back. But now he does finally kick the ball and it goes forward and Grobbelaar punches it. It goes to Robbie Earle and Robbie Earle's lobbed it and it's in the back of the net and it's a howler from Bruce Grobbelaar, you have to say. Why did he come so far out for that ball? He should have come to catch it. But Robbie Earle was very, very happy that Grobbelaar, well, he's called spaghetti legs, but I think he should be called spaghetti brained for that decision to come and punch that ball. And Robbie Earle with a very nice lobbed effort into the back of the net to make it 2-0 for Wimbledon. Liverpool on the counter now. It goes to Jamie Redknapp and he's going to play it out wide to Steve McManaman. And Steve McManaman trying to cut into the box. He plays the ball in to Ronnie Rosenthal and he goes down and oh, that's harsh. That's been given as a penalty. And well, if only we had some kind of video technology that could maybe help referees out. What a glorious world that might be. Or maybe not. But the referee has decided that it is a penalty for Liverpool, and this is a glorious, if soft, chance to get themselves back into the game. It's going to be the number 10, Jan Mulby, who runs up. He puts the ball into the corner of the net and only just past the hands of Hans Sager. Jan Mulby running immediately back to the halfway line, but it is now Liverpool 1, Wimbledon 2. David Burrows now with the ball. He plays it down the wing and that's a very nice touch from Don Hutchinson to bring the ball down, and he plays it into Rosenthal, who's hit the bar and it's gone to Steve McManaman and he's tapped it in. And well, that is a very, very nice goal, and Steve McManaman has got Liverpool level with the easiest goal he will ever score, which is very lucky because that's the first goal he has ever scored for Liverpool. I've got a feeling he's going to get one or two more hopefully some better than that, because that was like the kind of goals this commentator here used to score whenever he was in school and he used to play a little bit of football. Never a great scorer of great goals was I, but Steve McManaman was the exact opposite of that. He scored some beautiful goals in his career, and some hopefully a lot better than that one. Bruce Grobbelaar with the free... It's Bruce Grobbelaar with the goal kick here. The game is still 2 apiece. Are we going to see a winner for either side? And well, the ball's back into the Liverpool half. John Fasson's flicked it on to Robbie Earle, and Robbie Earle's put the ball just past Bruce Grobbelaar. It's Wimbledon 3, Liverpool 2 in this crazy game of football. The crazy gang are very happy with that, and you can see one man in particular, Vinnie Jones, is loving this. He's finally got revenge for the result against Liverpool for Chelsea a few weeks ago in what was his last game for that particular club before he returned to Wimbledon, and that makes it Liverpool 2, Wimbledon 3, and that is how this particular game of football ends. It's worrying times for Liverpool now. That makes it 5 defeats in just 10 games so far this season in the league. They've now conceded 11 in their last 3 games, and they've dropped down to 19th in the league. Worrying times for all concerned on the red half of Merseyside. And well, for Wimbledon, it's a little bit of better news as they jump above Liverpool in the table. They're now 17th in the league, and the game was played in front of 29,574 humans. And well, very good result for Wimbledon. They're going to be delighted with that, but lots of work for Liverpool to do.
And now to Sunday, the 27th of September, and Sexy Spen's second commentary of the week.
Hello everybody, welcome to Hillsborough for Super Sunday on Sky Sports with Sexy Spen. Try saying that 5 times fast. It's the first time the Sky cameras have ever come to Hillsborough, and today it's Sheffield Wednesday versus Tottenham Hotspur. This is the Sheffield Wednesday lineup. It's Chris Woods, Peter Sirtliff, Nigel Worthington, Viv Anderson, Roland Nilsson, Colton Palmer, John Harkes, Chris Waddle, Chris Bart-Williams, Gordon Watson, who comes in for player manager Trevor Francis. A manager actually dropping themselves. That's got to be a weird one, surely. Can't imagine too many managers have dropped themselves. But Mark Bright is up front for Sheffield Wednesday as well. On the bench for Sheffield Wednesday, it's Kevin Pressman, Danny Williams and Nigel Jemson. And well, they're up against a Tottenham team who are in the middle of an absolutely terrible injury crisis. In fact, 7 of their players are aged 22 or under, and the lineup looks like this. It's Ian Walker in goal, Dave Tuttle comes in for Neil Ruddock, Jason Cundy, Pat Van Den Hall, what an amazing name that is, Dean Stone Cold Austin, Andy Turner, Steve Sedgley, Paul Allen, Darren Anderton comes in for Andy Gray. So ironically, Anderton is replacing somebody who's injured. I don't think that's going to happen too many times in Darren's career. Nick Barmby comes in for Gordon Drury, and Teddy Sheringham is up front for Spurs. And on their bench is Eric Torstelt, Justin Edinburgh and Kevin Watson, and this game is played in front of a crowd of 24,895. And well, with that lineup from Spurs, you've got to say Sheffield Wednesday were the favourites going into this game. It's going to be an interesting one for Chris Waddle as well, because obviously he is a Tottenham legend, but he's playing against them for Sheffield Wednesday here today. And Nick Barmby is making his league debut in place of the injured Gordon Drury. And well, Tottenham have had a very good record at Hillsborough as of late. Their last 6 visits have brought them a record of 5 wins and a draw. So yeah, happy days. Are they going to be able to get another win? It was all laughs and jokes in the tunnel before the game. Sheffield Wednesday clearly not anxious about having the cameras at their home stadium for the first ever time. And well, look at those kits. A gorgeous yellow Tottenham kit there, to be fair. And Mark Wright, well, he was brighter than even those Tottenham kits early on, as he did get the goal to make it Sheffield Wednesday 1-0 at the second attempt, past a young Ian Walker, who, well, that dodgy haircut might have got in the way of him being able to save that goal. And then about 20 minutes later, it was Chris Williams with the cross that went to Gordon Watson, and Gordon Watson levered the ball over the bar. And then just over the half-hour mark, Sheffield Wednesday made it 2-0. Viv Anderson with a header from the corner. And, well, it was a simple header, and this just showed the inexperience of the Tottenham team. Gordon Watson again having another attempt there, but this time it was saved by Ian Walker. And, well, maybe he got his hair out the way for that one, as he did pull off a good save. But that is how the game ended. Sheffield Wednesday 2, Spurs 0. A dominant performance from Sheffield Wednesday. How it was only 2, I don't know. Some of the Spurs fans might have been wishing that they wasn't watching Sky Sports. They might have been wanting to watch Channel 4 instead, for the Lazio debut of one certain Paul Gascoigne. 498 days after his last game for Spurs, he finally made his debut over in Italy. It did only last 45 minutes, but that might have been preferable to watching the 90 minutes here at Hillsborough. But yet, 2-0 victory for Sheffield Wednesday. Very nice win for them. Tottenham slipped down to 17th in the league, just 2 wins in 10 this season, and Sheffield Wednesday move up to 11th place. So a very nice performance from Sheffield Wednesday.
And on to the Monday night football. We've got Arsenal taking on Man City at Highbury.
And Arsenal line up with David Seaman in goal, Tony Adams, Steve Bold, Nigel Winterburn and Lee Dixon at the back. In midfield, David Hillier comes in for Ray Parler, John Jensen and Paul Merson. And up front, Alan Smith, Ian Wright and Kevin Campbell back in the side, replacing Anders Limpar. On the bench are Alan Miller, Colin Pates and Anders Limpar. For Man City, Tony Coton, Keith Curl, Terry Phelan, Ian Brightwell and Andy Hill. In midfield, Peter Reid, Gary Flitcroft, Fitzroy Simpson and Rick Oldham. And up front, David White and Niall Quinn, who's back in for Mike Sherran. On the bench, Martin Margetson, Ian Brightwell's little brother, and Steve McMahon. Not a lot to chew on today at Highbury, although Arsenal were chasing them 3 points. And them 3 points did come courtesy of who else? Ian Wright in front of that glorious mural. The fans went wild. Arsenal got the points. 1-0, and that's all we've got. There's some Keith Curl.
And it was hardly a classic for the Monday night special. But Ian Wright gets his 6th goal of the season. The £2.5 million signing for Arsenal is really getting his scoring boots on at the minute, isn't he? 1-0 to the Arsenal.
And that brings us to the end of episode 10 of Relive the League. And what an episode it was. Let's just have a quick look at the top half of the table. Norwich sitting pretty at the top despite the draw away at formerly second place Coventry, who dropped down to 3rd, overtaken by Blackburn after their win at home to Oldham. Man United and QPR in 4th and 5th after sharing a stalemate and a point. And Villa climbing above Middlesbrough, who they beat 3-2 this week. They're slowly climbing up that table, turning out to be a decent season. And Saunders, what a signing he's turning out to be.
Definitely.
Let's just have a look at the lower half with my friend Ben.
So, looking at the lower half, we've still got Nottingham Forest at the foot of the table. Only played 9 games though. But the standout performers this week had to be Southampton. Cracking win away at Crystal Palace. And that puts Crystal Palace second bottom. Sheffield United also still struggling, and Wimbledon beating Liverpool.
Yeah.
You on the Duns. Liverpool's horrendous form. They've won 2 out of 10 games.
Yeah.
Where
Not
are
best,
the
is it?
European giants? Put me a fiver on them to get relegated, Mike.
I'll have a word with William, Mr. Hill, see what he's offering.
And then we have a quick look at the goal scorers. Alan
Not
Shearer
many off that
back
list
again.
scored today, did they?
Shearer got one, Ian Wright did, and Dean Saunders got a couple.
Dean Saunders got a couple.
So
yeah.
Alan Shearer
And Chapman.
this season. Chapman got one as well. But yeah, Shearer, standout performer of the season, 10 goals. Absolutely flying is the man. But that is it for week 10. So
It is.
yeah, thank you very much. If you listen to this point, thank you and Merry Christmas.
Well, yeah, it's technically coming out at Christmas, but if you're listening to this at some point next year and it's not December,
You'll be thinking, why they're talking about Christmas.
Yeah, what's talking about Christmas, but not a Christmas special. Have a nice day, whatever day it is. Boxing Day, Christmas Day, Sunday, Easter, whatever it is. Enjoy. See you later.